Welcome to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, here to share some amazing conversations. We're talking business, health, making and saving money, or starting something epic. Think of this as your go-to spot for stories that do a lot more than just kill time. They spark ideas, give you a boost, and perhaps even change the way you look at the world. I'm pulling in the experts, the thinkers, the doers, and the dreamers. We're about to dive into stories that open doors and ideas that light up your brain. Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley. And with me today, again, is my guest, Gina Ramsey. How are you today, Gina?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yay. And I'm so excited to have you on the show again. Gina, you joined us before to share your journey as an authorpreneur and, of course, your delightful book, which I absolutely enjoyed myself. And it's Burnt Gloveboxes, Embracing Life When It Goes Up in Flames. And I wanted you to come on the show again to share your volume 2, which is just been released in January. So congratulations for that. And again, thank you for joining us. So, Gina, would you share with us how this journey happened for you? Because by day, you are a social worker, and kind of by night, you are an entrepreneur. So, take it away and tell us.
So yeah, my journey with the book is short essays of crazy mishaps that have happened in my life. And Murphy's Law is what some people refer to it as. If it'll happen, it'll happen to me. I started having all these stories that started happening, moved to Wisconsin in 92, and the stories just started unfolding. And I would tell these stories to people, and they would laugh and say, "You have so many stories, you should write a book." So that's kind of what started the catalyst to start me thinking maybe I should write a book. So about 20 years ago, I wrote up the list of story titles after I had my glove box in my car that burned. That's in volume 1, that story. But I thought that's a perfect title for the book because it kind of encapsulates all these stories. Yeah. So in November of 21, I had a friend tell me about NaNoWriMo, which is November writing month. You're supposed to write a novel in that month. And I thought, well, I'm going to start writing my book. I don't know. I just started doing staying up late and writing it. And I got it done. Actually, the second volume is it's the second half to the first volume. So they had to split it in half because I had so many stories.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing kind of how that came to be. And you did share with us in the first episode that you were on about the month of writing. And so, yeah, it's just what, 30 days just to write as much as you can and try to finish a book. And so, did you get it all done in that single month?
I didn't. It was a good place to start. I worked really, really hard, but you're supposed to do 50,000 words in that month. And I didn't complete it by then. I completed it by the spring of 22, writing it. But that's not the end of the process, right? You get the publisher and then you're writing and rewriting and restructuring and doing different things like that. So it all finally came together in 23 when the volume 1 released. But I would encourage people, like some people, it's not for them, the writing month, it's too much pressure. But for me personally, you get like little awards, like when you put in how many words you typed. So I'm a former half marathoner runner. And so I ran for bling. So they gave me bling on the digitally. So that made me happy.
Yeah, that's so fun. I love that idea. It's kind of like you're getting a medal for accomplishing just little bits at a time. And that can be such a motivator for many people. As I just shared earlier, this isn't necessarily your full time work. You are a social worker. And so, how do you kind of balance doing all of this? Because now you're very, very busy. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but you have a podcast as well. So how do you balance it all? How are you getting all of this done?
Yeah, a lot of lists and post-it notes. But I really feel like my social work career, I work in the medical social work profession, and I have led classes for depression and anxiety. And I've learned there's a lot of different things that can help those things. Stress relief is basically the main component of that. And so doing all these different things. And laughter is a huge piece of that. It releases chemicals from your brain when you're laughing and you're happy and you're smiling. It really connects with my book doing that. Yeah, I'm juggling it all. I don't know. I watch Shark Tank and they always say you gotta hustle, so that's what I'm doing.
Thank you for that reminder. Really, it's so true. They say laughter is the best medicine. And that's, I think, the whole gist of what you're doing, right? Is how to bring laughter to people's lives when they're experiencing real difficulties and challenges. And so, talk with us a little bit about what inspired you to write the book and how you are using this as a way to help people who are trying to get over these challenges that they're experiencing.
Yeah. So my biggest inspiration for writing the book is I'm all about bucket lists and like reaching your goals and dreams. And really a lot of that is intention setting, and intention setting, a lot of that has to do with writing it down, telling other people I'm going to do this. And it was never a maybe one day I'll write a book. It was always one day I'm going to write a book. And I had this vision of like what it was going to turn out to be, and it's transforming right into what I wanted it to be. But my main goal with the book, Desiree, was to bring if I can bring joy to one person in this world, I feel like my book has served a purpose. And I had a friend that reached out to me. I mean, I had moms reach out to me because the book is, I mean, if you compare it to other humor books, it's pretty clean. So I had mothers reading these stories to their kids for bedtime stories and all of that. So that brought me a lot of joy. But I had a friend that reached out to me and told me that her mom has been sick for a very long time, and she bought a copy of the book for her mom. And she said, Gina, she's sitting on her front porch reading the book and she's laughing. And I haven't seen her laugh in such a long time. And right there in that moment, I knew that what I'm doing is a good thing and I'm making a difference in the world, one person at a time. And that creates ripple effects, right? Someone's laughing around you and it makes you happy. And so I feel like our world is hurting so much for so many different reasons. So if I can make a little impact, I want to keep doing that.
Yeah, Gina, that's so fabulous. You're so right. Is that ripple effect and can go either way. So if we're bringing laughter and joy to others, they're going to be sharing that as well. And if we can uplift somebody, it can make a difference in so many people's lives. And so it's tremendous that this two books now, volume one and volume two, are really doing that for so many people. So good on you and keep it up.
Thank you.
It's excellent. So, can you share when you were working on volume 2, was there anything that you found particularly challenging or maybe was cathartic for you in writing the stories?
I think that so the volume 1 and volume 2 was one whole transcript. So when I started in November 21, like, it was all of it. And so my publisher said, "We need to really split this into 2 because there's a certain amount of pages allowed for certain genres of books." And I felt like it was a great decision on her end, on that suggestion, I should say, because I've gotten from people feedback that it's an easy read. I can read a couple stories and, like, I finished this book really quickly, and those are the types of books that really resonate with me because of the time factor. I love those quick reads and fun reads. So, but I think that the biggest thing that resonated with me, I started taking writing classes. I wasn't a writer prior to all of this. So I started taking writing classes when I was doing my transcript, and just learning writing structure was really important, and how you portray other people. And I had a couple stories in there, and I didn't paint them in a terrible light or anything like that. But it really, like, taking those classes made me take a step back and think about how do I put myself in that person's shoes? And I feel like that improved my writing in that sense by doing that. I mean, I still made it fun, but I was able to take a step back and put myself in that person's shoes in a fun, humorous way.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we're not really taught how to write a book when we're in school, right? I mean, we're taught to structure sentences, but not necessarily to write a book ultimately. So, being able to take classes to learn how to build that skill is going to make it better for you as a writer and for the reader as well. So, I think that's a great tip for anyone who's considering, I have a book inside me and I want to write it. Consider taking some writing courses, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it, and you have to keep working at writing to make those improvements. And I learned that I was using the word very a lot. So from the working on book 1 to working on book 2, I was able to go in and take all of that out and the wordiness and stuff like that. So I'm learning as I go. I'm not perfect at it, but that's why I have a publisher and editors and people to help me through the process. So if there's anybody who is interested in writing a book, I knew I could write the book, but what do you do next and how do you go through this whole process? So there are people and experts out there who know how to walk you through that process. So don't ever let that sway you away from telling your story because your story is so important.
I think that a lot of times, and I'm gonna speak for myself, that you maybe feel like, or I maybe feel like, the story that I have, nobody's gonna wanna read it. So, how did you kind of overcome that?
Yeah, I knew people wanted to read these stories because I had people telling me they wanted me to write it and they wanted, my fans, my true fans, friends and family, they wanted to read it. But I think because I'm in the process of writing another book right now and it's a kind of a memoir and it's getting out of my own way. And like, because you do go in that space. Well, who wants to really read about this or who really cares that I was the oddest kid on the planet when I was a kid and eating chapstick behind a curtain? Real story. But I don't know, just like you build your fan base and they want to read what you have next. So I don't know. You have your true fans and I'm not so worried about it anymore. I just want to get my stories on paper and my true goal too is also to leave a legacy for my kids, for my family. Like I think about my mom and dad and I wish that I would have written like encourage them to write their stories because they're lost now, right? You remember some of them in your head, but there's probably so many more stories and cool things that happen in their lives and it's gone, like it's lost when they depart this planet. So, yeah, I don't know. I from time to time still get in my head, but I keep on just plugging away.
You made a good point though, and that's, first of all, get out of your own way and remember why you're doing it. And so for you, it's because you've got these things you want to share with your children, but also your friends and your family. And so I guess remembering that is what helps keep you going when those little doubting thoughts come in, right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
always remember why you're doing it. And I think, what is it? Simon Sinek's book, Start with Why. And so anything that you do, why are you doing it? And that should be the answer to any question that you have about something that you're attempting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's crazy because some people might start a book and they're like, this isn't for me. Maybe I just want to write this story and not have it published and have it for my kids, whatever. I found a love for writing and the craft and the people in this industry, especially like any of the writers that I've met, fabulous poetry and fiction and all of that. But I found a real connection with the folks that attended the funny folks that attended the Irma Bombeck Writers Workshop in Dayton. I attended that online and then I went in person and this last time and it was just it's so cool like being surrounded by other people who have that same goal of wanting to bring joy to our world. And they're my people. I love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so, what would you say you really learned about yourself as you were writing these stories and crafting this?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I learned that I am a writer. everybody's like, "Your stories are great, and the way you write them are so great." Again, there's a lot of hands in it. I wouldn't say my publisher changed my voice at all. She does her best to keep the writer's voice there through edits and stuff like that, but I've just found that I never realized how much I loved, like, words as an art. And it is, like, I love to paint. My undergraduate is in graphic design. I loved painting. I love doing all of that stuff. And this is a different way of using art. You're using words to craft and to paint that picture for your readers and to bring them into that moment with you, not just telling them about it, but bringing them next to you through different sensory things. So, yeah, I think that would be the biggest thing that I've learned is how much I've enjoyed. I feel like I found my purpose. It's crazy, like, it's just so deep in me that I found my purpose.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, can you share with us maybe a story from the volume 2 that just was released that you think that the listeners will enjoy?
Oh my gosh. There's so many good ones in there. Yeah, so I will share one story. So, volume 1 was all my stories. And volume 2 is most of my stories, but I do have 5 stories in there from other people, and that is because my goal is to launch an anthology with us. And, I want it to be similar to Chicken Soup for the Soul, but instead of people submitting inspirational stories, they're gonna submit their own Burnt Glove Box stories, their own Murphy's Law scenarios that have happened. And there's plenty of people out there who I talk to who have these. But let's see here. The one story that really resonates with me, and it's very simple, it really moved me to recognizing that other people believed in me before I believed in myself. Because I had been talking about writing this book, even when I didn't even realize I was talking about it to people. But my best friend, I went to visit her in Kansas, and I must have been talking about this whole concept. And her daughter, Hannah, she was about like 9 years old ish, around that age. After I had left Kansas, they had a story that happened. They call it the rat story. So they had this encounter with this rat. It got into their oldest daughter's car engine, and police got involved because her husband went out in the field and was doing donuts trying to get the rat out of the engine of the car. The end of the story, the rat met his demise. But I told Julie, she told me the story. That's my best friend. And I said, you got to write that story because I want to do an anthology. And she said, "Okay, I'll write it." Well, she was so busy she was a foster parent doing all this stuff. So Hannah, at the age of like 8 or 9, wrote the story for Julie because Hannah was involved in the story and she saw it from a child's eye, which was interesting. But the way she wrote the story was exactly how Julie had said, but in a child's version, so it wasn't real detailed, but there was enough detail in it that it was the same rendition. The funny thing is she put that story into a letter, and I didn't include the whole letter, but I did make mention of it in the book. But she put the story in a letter. And so, dear Gina, my mom doesn't have time to write this rat story. So I'm writing it for her. So she writes the rat story. And then at the very end, she put "Love, Hannah EB," and then she put "PS, I hope you write that book one day." And Julie still had this letter, she found it during the process of, because I said, "Do you have that letter?" And she said, "I don't know, I'll have to look around." And I didn't know it was a letter, like, I asked her for the story, and she looked around and she found it and mailed it to me, and at that time, I found out it was a letter. It was such a poignant moment for me to read that from the eyes of this young girl who heard my dream, and she believed that I could do it before I even knew it was going to happen. So, yeah, but the rat story is really cute.
That is so, so, so precious. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What a neat thing to have this young girl write it in her own words And that's just so cute. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so you mentioned that you're going to be launching this as an anthology
Yeah.
and that people will be able to contribute stories. So why don't you tell us more about that? Like, how will people be able to contribute?
Yes, my publisher and I, we have the system set up so they'll be able to go onto my website and be able to click on the link. They'll be able to see which anthology we are doing first, which is going to be it's animals, and it could be any animal story. So it can be pets, it can be encounters with wildlife, farm animals, zoo animals, whatever. You'll be able to see kind of what the criteria is for submission, just letting folks know that not every story is going to get into that book. But yeah, definitely submit your stories. I would love to read them. I just love when people approach me with their stories about their dogs or their cats. And really, the pet stories from the first book, people really resonated with those, and I think because animals are funny, and we watch reels of them all the time, right? So, yeah. So just go on my website, which is www.ginaramseyauthor.com, and you can, reach out to me if you have any questions.
Excellent. And I'll be sure to include the information in the show notes so that listeners can easily find that. And that's so exciting. How fun as well to be able to start this as an opportunity for people to share their stories too. And so just very cool. How fun. Okay, so we made mention earlier about your podcast and it's Laugh Lines and Turbulence with Deb and Gina. So would you tell the listeners what the show is about and what you're talking about on each of the episodes?
Yeah, so I reconnected with my friend Debbie after about 30 years. We used to work together in the medical field and we were instantaneously friends because she was funny, I was funny. We loved to laugh together at everything and anything. And just life got in the way, kids, everything. And so I found her on LinkedIn and I reached out. We connected. We did a call. It was like 2.5 hour call. But she told me how she left a prestigious medical career to become a flight attendant. It was her dream. And she's in her 50s and she's like, I've got to seek out this dream. It's something that's really calling me. People thought she had lost her mind. Her mom told her, "Why are you quitting your job? Like, you're leaving your insurance. You should be retiring. You should get in your rocking chair and get in the corner." She didn't say that, but that's how Debbie was feeling. Like, what is it with when we turn 50? Like, there's this expectation that, okay, now you're old, go away, when this is like one of the best times of our lives and we can really flourish and do some amazing things. So I had shared with her about my writing endeavor. And then she shared with me because I had wanted to do a podcast and I figured I wanted to do it with women 50 plus who are doing amazing things with their lives, who are doing new career changes. They are traveling, they're doing fun things, they're making changes in our world. So I didn't share that with her, but she told me that she wanted to do a podcast and she had shared this with her husband that she wants to like work with women who are 50 plus, and her husband bought her all this podcast equipment. And I said, "Are you kidding?" Like, that's hilarious because I want to do the same thing. She wanted a partner, I wanted a partner. So yeah, and that's where the name was created, Laugh Lines from my funny book stuff and turbulence connected with flight, but yet the turbulent times that we reach in our lives that we can smile about or find a positive in. Yeah, so we launched on August, I think it was August 9th of 2024, and we have a full schedule. It's crazy. So some weeks you'll hear from Debbie and I live, and then other weeks the opposite, like we do each every other week with a guest, at least for right now. And we have some remarkable guests. We've had some celebrities on there, and it's been amazing. Some just amazing women. So it's been fun.
That sounds fantastic. I love it. Oh my gosh. I'm definitely going to share the details in the show notes so listeners can check it out. But that absolutely speaks to my heart, and that's women doing amazing things,
Yeah.
whatever that may be, sharing their knowledge, the information that they have that they want to get out to the world or doing amazing things. And so I love it. Good stuff, Gina. Thank you for sharing that. And it's absolutely going to be on my follow and listen to on a weekly basis. I love it.
Thank you.
So, Gina, is there anything that you think that the listeners should know that you maybe haven't shared so far that could speak to resilience or a funny story or just anything that maybe you haven't shared so far that you really think they should know? Is there something you want to share?
Yeah, I think that you really hit a good point with resilience, and that's really what my books really touch on. I think a lot of really influential stories talk that really resonate with people and make them feel not so alone is those stories of struggle and then resilience and how people overcome those difficult times. My book isn't there to say you should laugh at everything in life because there are some very traumatic and horrible things that happen in people's lives that they're not probably going to find funny in, right? But finding a positive, finding gratitude in every day, even if it's a little thing. One day I woke up, I just was eating that poop sandwich. It's like I don't even know what's wrong with me. I was in a funk and I do a gratitude. I've learned to do a gratitude journal thing every morning. Have a glass of water and I write my gratitude and I just wrote the simple things. I'm thankful for that we have food, that I had clean water to drink this morning. And that really starts your day on more of a positive note. And even if you can only find those little things, I think that that can really help to improve. And then set your intentions. I know we talked about that earlier, but do those things that you envision doing or that you dream doing. I never wanted to. I know that there's a lot of studies that say that people get to where they're older and they're in nursing homes and the regrets that they have are not spending time with family and friends, focusing so much on career that they didn't do that. And then the other thing is not fulfilling their dreams, dreams that they held so deep, and now they can't do it. And so don't go out of this world wishing that you could have, like, set your intentions and do it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Gina. That's two really great things that we can all do every single day. Being grateful for all the things that we have in our life, whether they are physical things or just even within ourself and being thankful for them. Just a tremendous way to start your day. And remembering a job is a job and it pays the bills, but it's maybe not what you hoped to do with your life. Don't let that stop you, right? Just find a way that you can even begin to dive into whatever it is that you really hoped to do with this life because it's short and it's fleeting and we don't want to be at the end of it wishing we had done something different, right?
Well, I have so many bucket list items, but it's funny. My biggest travel bucket list item was traveling to the Swiss Alps. And I did that with my youngest daughter a couple of years ago. And we got to the top of those mountains, and I hugged the mountain, and I told her, "Take my picture hugging the Swiss Alps," and she's like, "Oh, mom," thinking someday you'll understand. So she did take that picture, and that somehow calmed my travel spirit. I still want to travel, but I don't have, like, this urgency or this, like, unsettledness because that was my biggest item on my list, and I am so glad I did it, and I just made a way, and I did it. I think, your listeners, same thing. You've got something down deep in your heart that you really want to do. Just get out there and do it. Desiree's right. Life's too short. And don't forget to laugh. Laughter is so funny. Watch your reels, your little animals or the babies laughing, and that will help you set your day as well.
Yeah, good point. I mean, we do have these dreams and goals, and they may have been pushed down by life, but we cannot let that stop us. We've got to find a way, make a way, find a way to accomplish those things because it is soul filling when we do that. And so, and laughter again, it makes all the difference in this world. And so, yes, thank you for sharing your stories with us to help us laugh. Gina, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Changing the world one little giggle at a time.
Gina, thank you again so much for coming on the show and sharing this with us. I so enjoy our conversations every time. Can you share now with the listeners again how they can find you, follow along your journey? If you're on social media, if you want to share anywhere, your website again, please do that now.
Yeah, yeah. So my website is www.ginaramseyauthor.com. And you can check out my newsletter on there. It's called What's Happening, which is a lot of fun. So, and then I also have a blog, so you can follow that on there. And then I'm also on some of the main social media links. So, Facebook, I'm on Instagram, Gina Ramsey 429. And the 429 signifies my first book published, signed with my publisher on April 29th. So, 429 is my lucky number. So, yep, Instagram, Facebook. I was on X or Twitter or whatever, and I can't get all my words on there, so I'm not on there as much, but the other ones, and then I'm also on TikTok occasionally, but yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I'll make sure to include the details in the show notes for the listeners to easily find you in all the places so that they can get their daily laugh and spread that through the world. So thank you for what you're doing, Gina. Again, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you coming on and sharing this with us again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Desiree. It's such a pleasure every time we meet.
Yes. Well, we'll talk more soon.
Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to another insightful episode of the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. We appreciate your time and curiosity as we explore fascinating topics together. If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to join us next week for another amazing episode. Remember, your journey of learning and growth is a continuous adventure, and we're thrilled to be part of it. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next week, stay curious and keep exploring those pockets of knowledge.